Here, drinking some coffee, watching some YouTube, watching a video by Trail Recon. If you ever see this, love your videos. Um, and I kind of got inspired. Thought maybe I'll make a video. I've got a couple of different topics that I could make. So I go to pull out my cameras, pull out my Canon, which is my primary shooting camera, and come lo and behold, my battery's dead. So I switched to my other battery, and it's dead. Turns out all three of my batteries are dead. Let's go. Okay, well, I have the Nikon Coolpix, which is my point and shoot. It's kind of the old school. It was a couple of my very first videos are made on this, so it's like it does a pretty good job at 1080p. Lo and behold, both of its batteries are dead. All 5 batteries are dead. So, I guess I'm gonna have to use the good old selfie cam here, and my other phone. I have a Note 4 that I keep around just for the camera on it. So about 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, I created a video talking about the car over LED headlight bulbs. At the time, those being a second generation headlight bulb, they were fantastic. However, in March of 2019, I'm starting to see a degradation in performance, especially after seeing newer modern bulbs in action. It really makes them not look so bright. No pun intended. There are a couple of things that have changed, not only in our understanding of how projector systems work, but how different types of headlights react to those projectors. Of course, the spider LED or the spider halogen enclosures that I'm using are designed for a halogen bulb. You can technically put an HID bulb in it, despite the fact an HID bulb is much hotter than a halogen bulb. One of the first issues that LED bulbs have is their size. As you saw in the last video, the neck and the actual sort of, I guess you call it stock of the bulb is much thicker, which causes the actual LED diodes to be further away from a point which would be similar to where the light is being emitted from on a halogen bulb. Another issue is the fact that the car rover bulbs are two-sided. So you get a very intense light coming from two sides of the bulb with no light coming out of the rest of the bulb, essentially. One thing that has changed in the production of these bulbs, I have kept up with them a little bit. I mean, I wasn't too worried about it because those ones were LED and they were going to last for a long time. Unfortunately, one of them has stopped working for some reason or another, so it's time to upgrade. One thing that has changed in their 5th or 6th or 7th or whatever generation the LED bulbs are at now is that the technology is available to make an LED bulb that sits in a more similar point in the housing to where an HID or halogen bulb would sit. It is also much easily accessible to get a bulb that can emit light in multiple directions. Instead of just two, you can go with a 4-sided or even a 6-sided bulb. The real question is, how will they hold up? And another question, which is also very valid to ask, is will the change in size and will the change in overall light intensity and direction change the way that the bulbs output? One thing that I noticed, and I actually noticed this because my parents bought a new car. They bought a 2019 Highlander, which is very nice, I can say. That one comes stock with a halogen LED projector. Halogen projector. It does not have LEDs. The back has LEDs. Everything in the front is incandescent or halogen. It's all traditional. One thing that I noticed was that with the halogen bulb, that projector is much brighter and much more even all the way across its spread than these ones are with the car over LEDs. So my hope is that having a bulb which sits closer to where a halogen bulb would sit and emits light in more directions will allow the reflection properties of the projector to directionalize the light properly. Something that it obviously doesn't do so well now, as we've seen even in that video. The more that I learned, the more that I realized the mistake. And the thing is, it wasn't that the bulbs were bad. That's just where technology had progressed at the time in the case of LEDs. Would it have been smarter to stick with a halogen bulb? Honestly, probably not, actually. The reason being, if you've seen some of my other videos, and if you've seen any of my progress on the forums that I am a part of, being Overland Bound and Off-Road Passport, you know that I've put the Jeep through quite a bit of miles, quite a bit of paces in that time. Do I think that a standard set of halogen bulbs would have lasted that time? I don't. There's just too much vibration and too much of a beating. The filament does not do well. Part of the reason that your car is designed to dampen the effects of the road, or in this case, the effects of an off-road environment, are because it's bad on you. You have to think, here's this little filament that's at a couple hundred or even a couple thousand degrees that is being jostled all over the place. In all honesty, I feel like I did get my money's worth out of the car over bulbs. I'm not angry or anything that they lasted 4 years. I think that's great because I was getting, about 2 years to a bulb on halogen. Do I think they should they have lasted longer? Probably. But at this particular time, I can't complain too much because, $40 for a set of very, very high powered bulbs. If you bought a set of HIDs, it would have cost much more because of all the extra bits and pieces you have to get with an HID bulb, the ballast and everything else. So I can't really complain too much, but now it's time to see what modern LEDs look like. These are by a company called Odiro, I guess. Some of these Chinese companies, you never know. As you can tell, it's much smaller. No, there we go. And it's so small that the camera's not focusing in on it. It doesn't really see it as something it should focus in on. So we'll see how that goes. As you can tell by the... See if I can get it up in here. This is where it's nice having the other camera, which is still charging. It's got 4 sides to the bulb, and it's much smaller. Now, the car rovers that I have in there now are 37 watt equivalent. These are supposed to be a 50 watt equivalent, or 50 watt usage. So equivalent to a much brighter bulb. Are they? I guess we'll find out. While I was at it, I also picked up a pair from ZDAT. My phone's really struggling with focus, which are a bit larger. These are 100 watt equivalent for the brights. The big issue that I had with the brights before, the reason I just went with the dinky bulb there, is because they have a cover that you also have to replace. And here's Car Rover again with a pair of replacement dust covers for those. Look a little something like this. Basically, it's just designed to pop in and over where the original dust cover is. That way you can pop this in and then seal it on however which way is appropriate. Kind of interesting. It's a thin rubber, it feels kind of like a baffle like you put on in a toilet or something. But that should do the job. As long as it works, I don't really give a damn. You don't really see that side of the headlight. So let's go ahead and get them installed and see what this is like. Here we have one of the old Car Rover bulbs versus the new bulb. Not only is it much smaller, but it's way lighter. Hopefully it actually works. Now, in the case of the high beams, previously I just had one of these little cheap LEDs in here because you have to have this dust cover over it. And that's where these come in handy, is it's designed to replace that dust cover, and it uses tension to actually create a seal instead of actually having to pop on. So the fan can still circulate air, everyone's happy. Hopefully that means we get way, way brighter lights. On a side note, I replaced the header panel on the Jeep. with one of the eBay specials. It is pretty rigid, but I hate those so much. I just want to point it out, the little ball connectors, because they're so tight that when I was pulling this out, I actually managed to break that off. So now I got to figure out how to fix that too. Do I plastic weld or do I epoxy? I guess we'll find out once you have them installed. So I got to cut this baffle down. Works really well. Props to Car Over on that. You can see it's got one just kind of is held in place by the bulb. In the last video, you know, I commented on how great the fit and finish on the Car Over bulbs were, and those are of course Gen 2 bulbs. Well, both of these are so much smaller, and the finish and the tolerances are so much better. I mean, it's one of those things where I guess just time proves. These things here, if you ever have an issue, try lubing up that O-ring on the inside of these with a little dielectric grease, because I tried to crank those in there and they were not going anywhere. Once you lube it up, it's like it pops in there nice and smooth. I like that because that means there's less chance of contaminants getting inside of the housing here. Of course, once I patch that hole and get the bulb back in place. Man, I wish that it wouldn't have happened. Of course, that's the issue of living in the desert. Plastics dry rot extremely fast. Obviously, you can't get something like this in steel or aluminum, so you kind of just have to deal with it. Since it's obviously too dark or too light outside to really judge these, they do seem brighter. It seems like there is a more directionalized beam coming out of the low end. Before it would just kind of be all the way across. And you see we've got a curve there, like it is actually closer to a proper projector pattern. The brights are definitely way brighter, I can tell you that right off the bat. But they're supposed to be, because you're going from basically what we've, at least based on what I've been told, we're going from a 15 watt bulb in the high beam to a 100 watt bulb in the high beam, and a 36 watt bulb in the low end to a 50 watt bulb. So I guess only tonight will tell. Okay, the sun is just starting to go down. As you can see, another beautiful sunset here in the Mojave. And I have to say I'm pretty pleased. So there's our low beams. As you can tell, the output format is much similar to an actual halogen bulb. And the high beams, well, that's pretty dang good too. Swing around here real quick. You can see, or well, you can't actually hear. The actual drive fans are much quieter. As you can see, I need to actually get those cleaned. They're getting pretty beat up in their old age. There's no doubt about it, they're much brighter than the old ones. You could actually see the some of the reflector material through the headlight. Basically what you're seeing on camera here on screen is exactly what I'm seeing. It's just a ball of light. Mini sun. So once again, another thumbs up, and we'll see what happens there. Although I did notice I was putting the passenger side headlight back in, which is the one that was not working, and the header plug was actually loose. So after all this is done, it looks like those Car Over bulbs may still work. That might have been loose, and that might have been the issue. Only way to find out is I'm going to have to find some sort of a test rig to try both of those bulbs and see if they work. But for now, this is Michael signing off, and we will talk to you again soon. Peace.